My name is Rob Cancelleri. I'm the principal at the Daw Elementary School. To the right of me, I have
Mr. Orr, I'm the principal of the South School.
I am Dave Goulet, principal of the Gibbons School.
Katie Monahan, principal at the Wilkins.
Hi, I'm Christine Feeney, principal of the Hanson.
And with the report cards coming out in the very near future, we thought that this would be a good family and community event to go over report cards, how they work. For families that are new to the district, because not every district does it the same way. If you're a kindergarten family and you've never had a Stoughton Public Schools report card come home, we're just going to kind of go over the basic essentials so you know how to read it as soon as you're able to access it electronically. So I'm up first. I think the big source of confusion when reading these report cards when you first get them is that you're going to look at the report card and automatically go back in time when you had your own report card. When you were in middle school or high school and the grading system was A, B, C, D, and F, right? We don't use those letters anymore for grading, and people then see the grading levels we use, but then they try to equate our grading rubric to the A, B, C, D, and Fs, and they're actually not relatable or similar. So in the elementary school levels, and it's different than the middle school and the high school here in Stoughton, because in the middle school and high school, the grading standards and rubrics are similar to what you would remember. We do not use averages. Grades are not cumulative. So when you get your report card grade, and I know there's some visuals included, it's broken down by work habits, social emotional standards, literacy, math, science, social studies, and there will be particular standards. It's a standard-based report card, and those standards are related to the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. So they won't just get one grade in literacy. They won't just get one grade in mathematics, one grade in science. There's a variety of different standards that they may or may not be graded on in each subject area. And again, those are not cumulative. What will actually happen, the grades just recently closed, your child or children's teacher will actually look to see how are they performing at the last minute before the grades close. So it's not how have they done throughout the entire trimester one or term one, but instead at the end of term one, where were they on the grading rubric in that particular standard area? Does that make sense so far? Okay. The standards on the report card represent skills that are expected to be mastered by the end of the grade level. Another tricky thing, so my daughter just started kindergarten this year, and now I'm trying to wrap my head around reading the report card as a parent, because you look at the different standards and you expect or you hope that they're meeting a certain expectation or they're exceeding a certain expectation, when in reality those particular standards should not be mastered until the end of that kindergarten or whatever grade level it might be. So keep that in mind as you read the report card and the grading rubric. Some standards are taught in isolation. So when you look at mathematics, when you look at the report card, it'll be broken down by subject area, visually, compartmentalized, and you'll see for a particular math skill, it might just be graded once over a student's entire kindergarten experience, because that standard was only covered and taught during that particular trimester. Other standards might be graded trimester 1, trimester 2, and trimester 3, because the teacher has concentrated on it instructionally throughout the entire year. Okay, and Mrs. Monahan, I believe, goes over our usage of NA for grades that we actually don't cover during a particular trimester. And again, other standards are covered in spiraling fashion and therefore are graded throughout multiple terms, especially the behavioral work habits. Your specialist teachers like music, technology, art, and phys ed, they will grade the standards every trimester because they're looking for certain things throughout the entire year. Now, the purpose of report cards, the target audience is all of you, parents and guardians. Report cards provide direct feedback to parents and guardians regarding the progress their child is making towards the end of the year standards that have been established by the Massachusetts frameworks for his or her grade level. So we created a standards-based report card that is reflective of the Massachusetts frameworks that teachers are tasked to teach throughout a particular grade level. And again, when you look at them, and the visuals are really helpful, that is the end goal, right? By the end of kindergarten, your child should be able to master something. And again, it's really important to remember that, because oftentimes the phone calls we receive is, trimester 1, my son or daughter, he or she got a grade of beginning in a standard area. and parents get concerned, like, what does that mean? Why have they not mastered it yet? And through a conversation, you'll come to understand, don't worry, it's okay that they're beginning because they're actually not supposed to meet that expectation until June. And again, this will make more sense when we get through the slideshow. And the report card allows parents and guardians to clearly understand expectations and what is necessary to be successful in a particular grade level. I think next up is Mrs. Monahan.
Hello. So Mr. Cancelleri did a really nice job of explaining much of this, but I will try my best to clarify a little bit. So these are the 4 different ways that your child might be graded during the report card: beginning, progressing, meeting, and exceeding. And again, I can't reinforce enough, but it's very important to understand that most of the grades that the students are getting are on standards that will spiral and come up numerous times throughout the school year. So as a parent, it very much should be expected that your students are probably getting a B or a P in term 1. And the reason that is because that's a skill that's just being introduced and the expectation is not mastery yet. So if you see a B on your report card, what that means is your student is beginning to understand that skill or concept. They still need support from staff to be able to work independently most of the time. And as a parent, it should be understood that that's okay. A P means they're progressing closer to mastery. And that means that this skill has been introduced and the student is able to work on it sometimes with independence, but they still do need support from time to time from a staff member. And M means that your student has mastered this concept. They are able to work independently without support from a staff almost all of the time. And finally, an E means not only are they able to work independently, but they're able to go above and beyond. And oftentimes as a teacher, we think of it as they could probably work with another student and teach that concept to somebody else. So sometimes you're going to see an NA, which means not assessed at this time. This most commonly comes up in math, and that's because based on the term, there are some skills or concepts that are only taught in that term. So for example, in 3rd grade, you might see in term 1 a not yet assessed or an NA for fractions because they have not learned fractions yet. But then in term 2, you will see that skill and standard gets a grade because in term 2 they were taught fractions. So they will have a grade for that during term 2. So it's very important to know that an NA is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means the student hasn't been taught that yet. And those are standardized throughout the district. So every single teacher is giving the NAs to every single student in a grade. They're already decided upon by our curriculum office. So if you see an NA on your report card, that means that every other student in that same grade across the district will also see that NA. A teacher does not decide what they can and cannot NA. And again, Mr. Cancelleri and I both touched upon this, but this is probably the most important thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about your report card, that a B is not the equivalent of a bad grade. That what that means is that your child is just beginning to work towards a standard with support. And again, all of us would like our students to be mastering all of these skills and concepts by the end of the school year. So if you have a report card in December that has a lot of B's and P's on it, that's okay. What you want to see then is those B's and P's turns to M's as we near June. Any questions? And I believe Mr. Goulia.
Thank you, Ms. Monahan. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Goulia, the principal of the Gibbons Elementary School. Having students at all 3 levels right now in my house, elementary, middle, and high school, the standards-based report card is without a doubt the most informative report card that we have. Now, my kids are older and it's more of a traditional report card at this point, but this standards-based report card is designed to give you the most information you can have as a parent to understand where your child's progressing. You should know that these report cards have been revised over the years. I remember the big effort to go to the standards-based report card many years ago in Stoughton. They're vertically aligned with the Massachusetts frameworks. The Massachusetts framework can be found on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website. They're very thorough, they're very interesting. Something that we really want to hone in on is work habits and responsibility. And getting an idea of where your child is when they're in their classroom. Are they able to complete tasks independently? Do they need support? In terms of their peer relations, how are they getting along with each other? We want to make sure that you have an understanding of these sort of skills. The social skills are so important. The social skills I immediately think of our first graders right now. Last year when they were in kindergarten, it was for many of them, they did not have that preschool experience. So because of COVID, they came into kindergarten. It was their first time in a classroom of 20 students. I want to know, how did my child do within that setting? It was a challenge last year for those kindergartners. Now they're first graders. So the report card is designed to give you information around those skills as well. Okay, this is what you're going to see. These are going to be emailed to you on the 16th. You'll receive these in your email. And you're going to see that it's broken down by trimester. We are beyond the 60th day of the school year. So each trimester, you're going to receive a letter to figure out, to help you figure out where they are progressing. Are they beginning? Are they meeting? Are they exceeding? As a parent, I am not disappointed when my elementary school student comes home with some B's or M's. I'm not disappointed when I don't see an E for exceeding. A lot of people confuse the E for an A, they just want to equate that. It's okay. The goal again is to be meeting that standard by the end of the year. It's completely okay, especially that trimester, that you're working toward that standard. But this is a visual of what you're going to see for the student responsibilities and social habits. Next slide, Mr. Dora. Okay, we went to the next slide, sorry. So again, more information around how your child does developing, making friendships, coexisting with their peers, following the routines of the classroom, and then the fine and gross motor skills, particularly with the younger students, around the important concepts of using the tools in the classroom correctly, be them scissors, pencils, markers, their hand-eye coordination. All of this is being assessed by the teachers on a daily basis. So this is your 3 times during the year, you're going to have this information that you can look at and you can compare each trimester. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dorr.
Thanks, Mr. Julia. All right, so for the report cards, the 2 methods of electronic delivery are through the PowerSchool parent portal or an email link sent to an active email account. So those get blasted out. You should receive it. Everyone who has an email on your child's account should get access to that report card. Report cards are delivered through an electronic delivery to parents and guardians, and they're password protected. So you set that up. You are the only ones who have access to it. There's no getting lost on the way home. It goes directly to you so that you can see it. All right, so we're gonna break down some of the different subject areas. So for literacy, the elementary report cards align with the newest 2017 language arts and literacy frameworks, so there continue to be updates to the frameworks in 2017 the most recent. The report card reflects those changes in the DESE curriculum. Language and sequence are drafted from those frameworks. All standards are taught, but not all standards are graded each term. So you might hear that your child might be doing something in school that's maybe not directly described as a standard, but it might be a subset of that standard. It might be the standards are very large and have lots of components, and the way that it's reflected on the report card is really a modified version of that standard, because there's a lot of language. The standards are very, very dense. There are specific power standards that were selected at each grade level to be reflected on the report card. So maybe like a greater focus area. There's lots of standards that are taught throughout the year. Not every single one is on the report card. For math, the elementary report cards now align as well with the 2017 frameworks. The standards are arranged by domain, and problem solving is essential and addressed at all grade levels. So you'll see that the math standards, when you actually look at the report card, there's a lot of them, especially as kids continue up through the grade levels, and by the time you get to 5th, it has to be grouped by domain in order to see the different places that we go throughout the year, and that's also where you see a lot more of those NAs as to how the standards are taught throughout the year. All right. Science, technology, and engineering, and history, and social science. So it is represented as one grade that is consistent through grades 1 through 5. It's also represented through literacy standards as reading in the content areas. So what you'll see on the report card is science, technology, and engineering, and history and social science. There are a number of standards that make up both the sciences and social studies. The way students are graded is around their understanding of both science and social studies concepts and content. And so what it's saying here too as well is that there are plenty of opportunities where both social studies and science are embedded into the writing and literacy components of the day for students.
From the Hanson, and I just want to talk a little bit about all the supports and resources we have. So before I talk about that, when we receive the report card, it could be a little overwhelming. It's a lot, especially if you're not in education, but that's why we have all these supports and resources. And we're very lucky that our conferences and open houses come before that we get our report cards. So in your conference that happened last week, there will be some indication of what this report card looks like. So if you get a report card and the conference was totally different, that we have a disconnect, and definitely reach out to your teacher. I think in this day and age, we're so lucky because we have email, we have Remind, we have phone calls, and I think people are very accessible. So if there are any questions or frustrations, but I do want to go back to the fact that we have to remember this is December and we just started school, and I really feel like we're lucky to be back full force, and kids will get there when they get there. And because we have so many supports at school now, and really more than I've been in Stoughton 5 years, we have the most resources, like people resources, helping. So if your child is in need of a little extra support in one of the areas, we're very lucky. We're all getting a math coach, we all have literacy coaches. We are very lucky, I think, at every school to have retired teachers coming back to help. And these are teachers who worked in our schools, who know the curriculum and know the kids. So they are coming back daily. We also have interventionists that are assigned to all schools. So Stoughton has spent a lot of money like beefing this piece up so that no kid falls behind. COVID was a tough time. We definitely had to ramp some things up, and we do have some ways to go, I would say, but I mean, everyone is focused. I know that everyone here, we were just having data meetings, like really looking at where kids are at, where they need to go, and what we need to do as the leaders of the school, but what our whole team needs to do to make sure our kids are always moving forward. We also have extended day opportunities and summer programming. I did reach out, so we have a new, Linda Feeney used to be in charge of all the extended day and summer programming, and you probably know her name, but we have someone new in the role, Tara Melton-Baltz, and she has been great, and she actually shared some of the summer programming. Can you go to the next slide, just on this? So some of the things that are already set up for the summer, and it goes through the gamut of grades. You can look this over here now. Right now, I think that all of our schools are doing after-school programming for grades 2 through 5, so we don't do the younger kids, but we're lucky to have that. That's free, and it's an hour after school, 2 to 5 days a week, depending on what school. The next registration's coming out, so if you have a child, I mean, it's a great program, and it's an hour, it's quick. The kids enjoy it. It's usually very activity-based and fun, but they're still learning. And then we're lucky to have, we have the Nights of Summer, we have a transition program. I know the Wilkins has a separate program that they run. And we actually, I think it only started last year, I think it just started last year, but there's instruments for grades 5 through 6. So these are for students who are going in grade 5 or 6. So if you have a 4th grader this year and they're really into instruments, there's something for them in the summer. There's a drama program that they were doing productions, small little productions. So we're very lucky to have all of these pieces, and in Stoughton, everything's free. So that's like, I think, the kicker to it. Not a lot of districts have that. It's a huge bore, and I think you should embrace it. We really need to make sure this programming is, make sure if you're interested, you get in fast though, because once it fills, they're like, oh, it's filled. Even the after school program, I know at the Hinson, kids had to be turned away for this first session. So I know those parents are ready for the second. Because we try to keep the classes a little bit smaller, a little more intimate, like 15, 20 kids versus making it huge. But definitely take advantage. I mean, people who are teaching in these programs are very dedicated. They're very, very much a part of the school community, and they want to move the kids forward. So those are just some of the things that we have in place. So to help with that, kind of related to the report cards. And I actually did a duplicate slide. The next one was pretty much about the Power School access. I kind of double dipped with the report card. But Power School, I know at the elementary level, it is more used to get the report cards. You can also look at your students' attendance. But as your child gets older, Power School is one of those things that you could really track, like what did they get on this test? What did they get on this assessment? It's something to get used to because you can keep track of what your child is doing. Right now, you will receive on the 16th, you'll get an email, and it's password protected, but the password is your child's birthday. So you'll get an email with those directions as well, but you can also log right onto Power School. If you have any trouble, just call the main office. So all of our secretaries are amazing. Don't call me. I'm always like, wait, Mrs. Cancelleri, so how do we do this? So I really think get on that now, and I know that day people will email me late at night and I will be able to send you your report card, but it'll be fine. I'll get our report cards. And again, if you have any questions, just please make sure that you reach out. Don't be stressed about it. Don't be stressed about the Bs. Don't be stressed about anything. Just reach out to your teachers, because really our job is to support the teachers and you, but the teacher's job is to make sure there's a good communication, your kid is nurtured, loved, and you know exactly what's going on. Because without our very large crowd here, without all of you sitting here, we cannot do this effectively. So we definitely appreciate all of the support. And that was pretty much our presentation. Were there any questions? Yes.
Question about the summer programming.
Yes.
The ESY one, does your child need to be on an IEP, or is it?
Yes, for the ESY.
Okay.
Yes, but there's there's nights of summer, there's the transition programs, so there's a whole, like, all of those others you do not.
And there is a kindergarten, first grade transition
Mhm.
I
program.
said yes.
And then the other thing I was going to mention too, if your child is on an IEP, you will also be receiving a progress report related to that IEP that will go home hard copy the day of report cards. And then in some ELs as well. So the English language learner teachers and special education service providers will be sending those home. And in addition to that, they have, what was I going to say? In some situations, students based on their IEP will actually have some modified grades included in the report card. That would be something you would already be aware of through communication with the liaison, the person that's your liaison for special education services. And what that would look like is just a regular report card, the one that you just saw visuals of, but where the grades are, there'd be an asterisk next to it, and that would just indicate the fact that somehow the grading practice with that particular standard based on a child's individual education plan had been modified. But again, it would never be something that, like, surprise, it would be something that was discussed at your meetings with your special education team.
Nothing should be a surprise.
I focus immediately on the behavior standards. I mean, those are really a good source of communication, and like Mrs. Feeney said, in terms of the academic ones, you're working towards expectations. Those, I think the behavioral ones, especially this first trimester, is a good indication of how you should move forward with communication with your child's teacher.
I also think that the comments are
Yeah.
invaluable. So if you really want to know how your child is doing, certainly pay attention to all of the information in the report card, but really read and take to heart the comments that the teachers write about your child, because the teachers spend a lot of time thinking about what kinds of feedback to give grown-ups at home about how their child's doing in school. So that comment section is really where you're going to get a lot of personalized information about how your child's doing.